what you can expect, and then have time for questions and answers. There are a couple different ways that we're going to handle questions. I'll talk about that in a moment. But in general, here's how we want to handle the meeting so that we can be effective for all of you. It's my job as the facilitator to make sure we run efficiently, respectfully, and effectively. We want to focus on the agenda that I just talked about, which is really about meet the contractors. We want you to be able to ask the questions that you need to ask and have the questions answered. And then also I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to participate. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. So in order for that, for that to happen successfully, we're going to ask that you respect everyone else's opinion and allow everyone to kind of finish their question. We're going to get to answers to you. We've got two different presentations happening back to back. So we're going to ask you to hold your questions until the end, but we're going to allow you, we're going to use a tool to allow you to be able to jot your questions down in between, with the goal that at the end we'll be able to get to all of the questions. At that time that we get to the Q&A, I'm going to figure out who the appropriate party in the Amtrak team or the program team is, and then I'll make sure I delegate who that answer should come from. And if you, as the participants, can limit yourself to one follow-up question, that'll make sure that we get to all of the folks that are here this evening. Okay, so we're going to use a little bit of technology to support us in getting the questions and answers. Of course, if you have a question and you have a piece of paper and you want to jot it down, that works fine, and we'll allow you to ask those questions at the end. But if in the interim you want to be able to ask questions, there's a QR code on the screen. You can use this tool, it's called Slido. Scan that QR code and then you can write your question there. That's going to allow us to keep track of all of the questions. We do have folks in the room who are taking notes as well of the questions as you ask them, but this is just an additional way to make sure we get all the questions that people may have. We'll also then have some microphones that are here in the back of the room that you can queue up and ask your question there. So a couple of different ways that you can submit questions. We just want to give everybody an opportunity to do that. That seems fair that we're going to hold the questions till the end so we can get through the presentations? Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So for those who are not as familiar, and a refresher for those who are familiar, a little bit about the program and its background. The existing Baltimore and Potomac Tunnel is about 150 years old, which is about as old as Druid Hill Park. It carries 9 million mark in Amtrak passengers per year on the Northeast Corridor. The Northeast Corridor is Amtrak's busiest line. That's also where the MARC Penn line operates, is on that Northeast Corridor. So some of the issues that are afflicting the existing tunnel are that it's aging, it's 150 years old, and then trains are frequently delayed and kept to a 30-mile-per-hour travel speed because there are very sharp turns in the existing tunnel. I'm going to show you a map of that alignment in a moment. Because it's a little bit older, then there's also a need for frequent maintenance, and there's not enough redundancy to be able to overcome when you have to do those maintenance activities. So it makes this tunnel the biggest bottleneck between New Jersey and DC. So the Frederick Douglass Tunnel Program is the name that we have been able to give to the tunnel, is the Frederick Douglass Tunnel, with the permission of the Douglass family. We were able to rename it in honor of Frederick Douglass, who was a slave who escaped to freedom on the train. And the tunnel, the program is going to modernize this Northeast Corridor, and it's going to modernize this section. It's about, if you look at the entire program, it's about 10 miles of rail improvements with these two tunnels that are about 2 miles long in these two tunnels. We're going to improve the railroad infrastructure that comes up to those tunnels as well. Some of those key features are a new ADA accessible West Baltimore MARC station. If you've been to the existing station, you know that they're pretty steep stairway. There's not really a way for someone to get onto the platform. And then if you are actually on the platform, there's not a really easy way to get onto the train. So we're going to be solving both of those issues with the new West Baltimore MARC station. We'll also be able to add the kind of current state-of-the-art modern life safety systems. And then there are some other pieces that go along with this infrastructure work. So there are 5 bridges that will be rebuilt as part of this program. 2 of them are roadway bridges, which means that the road is being carried, and 3 are railroad bridges, which means that the rail is being carried. We'll also be doing some other modifications to 11 other Baltimore City roads, and there will be the construction of noise barrier in Midtown Edmondson and Greater Rosemont. I talked a little bit about this map of the program. Some of you may have seen it. We're still working on kind of updates to the map that will show more of the local streets around it so that people can more easily familiarize themselves with the program. But where you see the black with the orange dotted line, that is the existing Baltimore Potomac Tunnel. Where you see the green line with the dash, that is the new Frederick Douglass Tunnel. Where you see the dashes is where it's below grade. So that's where it's below ground in that particular area. So there are a number of benefits of this program, and it's many of them you may have heard of. So one of them is that as part of the requirement for this program, there is a community investment program which has a $50 million funds. There are 2 ways that you can get those funds, in a direct grant or in direct investment or a community grant program. Amtrak's in the process of rolling this program out. It is not yet ready, completely ready for rollout, but we are working through some of the logistics. And at a later date, we will come back and have a meeting just to talk about, not just one, several meetings to talk about the community investment program. There's also a commitment as part of that program to create local job centers to create and build this workforce here in Baltimore. And then obviously our hope is to increase access to regional jobs for city residents and others. Additionally, I talked about improvements to this roadway and railroad infrastructure, but as we're going through the demolition process, there's access to some of the salvage materials that are coming out of that demolition. So that's a benefit that we think is kind of important. And then for railroad riders is really improved travel time on the corridor. So I wanted to give that background before I invited the demolition contractors to stand for me. Yep, go ahead and stand. All right, yep, both sets. And I'll give both of you an opportunity to introduce yourself. So Keith.
Hey, first of all, I'm Keith Adams with K&K Adams, and I just want to say before I start speaking, I feel it's a privilege to work in West Baltimore, work on this project, because my father started a business at the Warwick Avenue Bridge in 1964. I went to Carver and graduated in 1979, but I should have graduated in 76. No, I came in 1976, so I'm 65 years old, me and my wife. So I just want to say thank you to the community, thank you to everyone, and my mother-in-law still lives on West Lafayette Avenue. She moved there in 1950. So this is a game changer for the West Side, especially the Mark train station. So we are doing a demolition with Amtrak, and we've been in business for 30 years. It's a family business, but we also do excavation. We did Merlin Live Casino. We demolished Lutheran Hospital. If anybody in the community know where that is, right up the street on Lafayette and Ashford. So again, I feel proud to be a part of this, and you'll see me on the project. I met today, and we spoke, and then we're here, communicating again. So if you see me out there and you just have any questions, you can come talk to me. And I just want to say thank you to everyone.
And then PK.
Keith, you're a tough act to follow. Your company is very well represented and very reputable. All I can say is I hope that we measure up to your standard too. My name is PK Burrell. I own a company called Delaware Cornerstone Builders. We were awarded a demolition contract for commercial structure We are unionized through the laborers union, so if anybody's looking for work, I can certainly point you to the laborers union, or we have to hire from the hall. In terms of ourselves, in addition to demolition, we perform hazmat, abatement, masonry work. We also perform mechanical insulation, none of which is, mechanical insulation has nothing to do with the contract itself. The first project that we have, building is down, it's gone. So demolition traditionally takes place relatively quickly, and hopefully that's what it should be. We do want to thank Amtrak for the ability to be one of your contractors. And we really want to thank the city of Baltimore, with the exception of maybe a couple of people, for being receptive to our efforts. Because we think that it actually helps in terms of demolishing, in that it reduces urban life, and also hopefully improves property values in the long run. Again, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. All right, so we mentioned that both of those contractors are currently working, so that work has already begun on those demolition activities, both on residential and commercial properties. I'm going to talk a little bit just to get you caught up on what that is, some of that other additional activity that's supporting their demolition work. So one thing was that Amtrak made sure that as we acquired properties, that a property security company has been hired to support keeping those spaces empty, safe, clean, and that company has been working for a few months. They're successfully being able to work on that activity. As it relates to demolition, there are 5 properties on the 1000 block of North Payson Street that have started that demolition activity, and then 2 properties on West North Avenue. So that activity is currently underway. Some other activity that many of you have started to receive notification of are exterior pre-construction surveys. The contractors, the team has to identify what those existing conditions are. So some of that work is already starting. And utility relocation. So that work is already starting as well and will be ongoing for a little bit. Just a little quick note on the construction contracting method. So we're coming into, this is a specific type of construction method that Amtrak is using here, that we're coming kind of out of planning and design. There's a slight overlap between planning and design before you go into construction. And some of the value of doing it this way means that you've got a little bit more transparency between the designer and the contractor. That can really help allow the progress to happen a little bit better. And it also allows coordination. So that coordination can lead to a better overall outcome for a construction project. It does also create an environment for some innovation. So the designers and the contractors can have a good conversation that can lead to a little bit better outcome. It also helps minimize and mitigate some risk. So when you go in a traditional construction mechanism, the designer may design and be totally complete. The contractor gets out in the field and sees a challenge, and that causes time and causes some delay. So this mechanism allows them to mitigate some of that, and that also is better for the owner as Amtrak, and it's better for the project. It helps really focus in on what those costs are so that the contractor can communicate that kind of right in real time to Amtrak, so that that kind of work can work a little bit more effectively. And so there's also still subcontractors that will be involved, and both of the contractors will talk a little bit about that. And with that, we're going to transition to the contractor teams. The AVP for the Frederick Douglass Tunnel Program.
Thank you, Alessa, and welcome everyone. My name is Luigi Rosa, and I'm the Amtrak Program Executive for the Frederick Douglass Tunnel Program. Today it's a beautiful day outside, but it's also a beautiful day inside of the school, because a lot of people made the decision to spend some time to learn about the project. So I feel really grateful for that, and it's really a privilege for me to be here with the project team and to introduce the contract of the main contractors to the community. What I want to say in addition what Odessa said, because I thought I was going to say what you said. So the goal of bringing the general contractors early on is very important for many reasons. One reason is we want to learn from the builders, people and companies that have been building this stuff for many, many years, and we will hear from them, and we want to learn from them so we can improve the design and also develop the best means and methods to build this project. But this is important also for the community, in my opinion, because you have been asking very important questions, but very detailed questions sometimes, and I try to convey the message that maybe we're not ready today to address that specific question, but having them, the contractors, the builders, the experts, early on, that will help us also address specific questions, always in advance of construction. That's the key goal. So I want to introduce the two contractors, the main contractors, and it's been a long process. Amtrak went through this procurement process to make sure we were receiving the right level of competition to select really the best, and we think we selected the best companies to deliver this project. So we will introduce the two general contractors, one for the southern approach, and we will clarify what southern approach means, but I also want to say the station, the new West Baltimore station, is part of the southern approach at what we call Package B. And we selected Clark Construction and Stacy Whitbeck, two companies, along with the several subcontractors. They have the experience, they have the knowledge, and more important, they have been building in Baltimore, in Maryland, and it's a great honor to introduce them to you. And also for the tunnel, that it's really, along with the station, the other core project item, the new tunnel, we selected another great joint venture, Hewitt Shea. They have been building tunnels in America for hundreds of years, and they are very expert. You will hear from them. So I want to thank you again for coming today, and I'm going to go back to Odessa, and she will introduce the contractor. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Luigi. So just as a reminder that we're going to hold questions to the end, but if you want to just jot your questions down as we're going through, if you scan this QR code, it will take you to the ability to start to submit your questions. All right? So I'm going to give you guys a moment in case someone walked in a little bit later that wanted to do that. Bill.
Thank you, Odessa. We good? All right, thank you, Odessa. I'm going to introduce myself and then another team member from the Clark Stacy Whitbeck team, and then go through some of the details of what we'll be delivering as part of our role on the Frederick Douglass Tunnel. My name is Phil Sheridan. I'm a Senior Vice President with Clark Construction, and I am the Project Manager for the Clark Stacy Whitbeck joint venture. I bring nearly 40 years of construction and design experience to the team, and I'm really proud to have been selected by our joint companies to serve as our leader and prime point of contact for Amtrak, responsible for delivering the Package B. Also, take this moment to introduce Brian Hetherington.
Thought you were going to do that, Phil. My name's Brian Hetherington. I'll be the General Superintendent on the Southern Approach project. I'm a Vice President with the Clark Construction Group, part of the Clark Stacy Whitbeck team that will be leading the field operations on this job.
Thank you, Brian. And Brian is pinch hitting our construction manager. Kenny Waters is on PTO with his children, so he'll be back, and he'll be certainly part of the face of Clark Stacy as we move forward in future public meetings. So a little bit more information on Clark Stacy Whitbeck, who we are. We're both, as Luigi kindly noted, very experienced heavy civil contractors. We have a great depth of experience, and we bring together a proven team. Together, we've been working on complex rail infrastructure projects for over the last 10 years in joint ventures around the country. Collectively, we've delivered and have under construction over 100 active rail projects that we're touching around the country, and more than 20 of those projects have been delivered for Amtrak. A couple of examples in the bottom center. These are the automated people movers out at Dulles Airport. We were a key part of delivering that key improvement to mobility at the airport many years ago. Actually, Shea was part of our joint venture at that time. The bottom right is the Brightline. This is the first privately operated high-speed railroad to open in the United States, and the Stacy team was a key member of that joint venture. The other two pictures just show you some of our operations around active rail infrastructure, which will be a very critical point of the Frederick Douglass Tunnel, is making sure we keep the current trains moving while we build that new operation. Diving in a little deeper, we've maintained and been based, Clark has been for 116 years as a Maryland company. But more importantly to that, we maintain one of the largest self-performed craft workforces in the Maryland region, and we have very robust, long-standing, improved relationships with our industry partners that will be coming on board on our teams that we'll draw on. They're both locally based, folks like Keith. We've got many projects in our portfolio through the years with Keith, as well as the national stakeholders that we may need. Importantly here, the map that zoomed in, all those pins, the little flags there, are projects that we have completed in Baltimore City. We've been building here for over 45 years. We're very proud of the history. Some of those historic or marquee projects that we have been responsible to help delivering, of course, the Camden Yards at the top center, and then we have we've been involved with the M&T Bank for the Ravens, almost got to the finish line this year, right? The John Hopkins, we've done many buildings on their campuses throughout the city. We've done work for CSX. The bottom right was an enabling project for their active double stack program. The CFG Bank Arena, we were involved in the station fit out of the Hopkins, the MTA Riverside Heavy Maintenance Facility. We worked up at the Shot Tower. We did the station fit out. Our Kiewit partners did the actual mining of some of the tunnels there. So we've worked a lot of key projects, big projects in the city. You can see the scale of that. Over 1.6 billion of work in the last 4 years of construction that we've supported and managed, and that workforce is the 2,000 people. So some of the goals and commitments that we have, these align very well with some of the ones you saw on the slide that Odessa touched with earlier, right? Making sure that we're creating an impact, right? Fostering opportunities for economic growth and development in West Baltimore. Making sure we're building with integrity, providing a fair and respectful workplace for all those folks on our team, no matter their position. Making sure we look at the work sustainably, making sure we're leaving the community in a better place, making sure we're reprocessing, recycling materials, and looking at green sourcing as we buy new materials. Making sure we're engaged and making sure that that connection with and supporting the Baltimore community is robust. And of course, building safely. And the building safely is not just inside our construction fences. It's equally important is that you as the community we're building in know how to safely navigate around, whether you're in a car, on a bicycle, on foot, that you can safely move around our construction and adjacent to our construction. The other commitments that we have, again, align very well with what we've seen, right? We're committed to keeping you, the community, engaged and informed. We really foster a process of proactively giving you information rather than reactively responding to concerns. We're committed to providing transparency in our build process, so these meetings are part of that, making sure what's upcoming, what's going to be out on the horizon, when is a detour scheduled to change, so that you don't show up on a Monday morning and try to go to work and there's a new detour sign that showed up over the weekend you don't know about. That will not happen. We're committed to highlighting the progress and then sharing news and upcoming worksite activities, right? And then committing to answering your questions with Odessa and the rest of the team in a very timely manner, right? We know information is critical. So touching on, this was in there and there's a little bit of this happening, but as we move into the startup of Package B, and Brian's going to speak to the timing on that in a few minutes. Construction monitoring is one of the two pillars of the earliest things we have to do to make sure we understand the existing conditions and what the baseline or ambient background is. This touches on everything from the vibration and noise to where's the groundwater around your properties or under your properties. So the types of instruments and construction monitoring we'll be using include things that are drilled into the ground. This will include things that measure water with potential for movement. It will be what are called prisms. It's a device that allows us to read the position of a building wall. With an owner's permission, everyone will be approached in writing and will get written permission, but if you grant that, then we'll be able to put monitoring prisms on your home if you're front line on the construction. There'll be other prisms and monitoring points on the ground surface as well as on those utilities, so we understand what's going on. What's most important is, as these are put up, we maintain and capture a minimum of 30 days of data before we start any major ground disturbing activities. So we know what's the present state, if you will. In the pre-construction surveys, the CSW team for Package B will be engaging an engineering firm that will conduct the preconditioning existing condition surveys for those homes and buildings in the neighborhood that are adjacent to the planned work near the southern approach, the IVF and the NVF. These inspections will document the current interior and exterior conditions of the survey properties to help facilitate the processing of any future potential claims in the unlikely event there is a belief that there may have been damage caused. The subject property owner, so if you're a tenant, it will be your landlord, will be contacted by either certified mail, FedEx, UPS. We will make sure that there's a traceable means of outreach so that you can, it will provide all the information on how to enroll in the survey process. So everyone is contacted, then you can schedule the timing. We work with early evening. We will set up Saturdays if we need to, but we do need to do it in daylight hours because we have to be able to get good quality data on the exterior conditions. The property owner gets a copy of the report, all the photographs, as well as the written observations of the expert. Right now, we're projecting that the outreach, the mailings, will go out in approximately the next 45 days. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Brian to give you a little bit more, a deeper dive into what we're doing in Package B.
Thanks. So I'm going to spend a couple of minutes and really talk about what our scope of work is on the project with the Clark Stacey Whitbeck team. We cover a large stretch of the project. Basically, we cover work that is above ground, and the QHA team is doing predominantly the work below ground. So I'm going to start at the southern end of our work and work up through the alignment. This begins with, we have a small amount of work at what's called the Winans interlocking. This is primarily track and utility work that is in Baltimore County, pretty close to the Hillthorpe Park Station. Moving north, we have about a 2-mile stretch called the Wilkins interlocking. This is track and adjacent utility work, small retaining walls, but work within the right-of-way, straddling the Baltimore City, Baltimore County line. This is in the Oakley, Violetville, St. Agnes area. This enables the tracks in the future to have the switches and crossovers to allow high-speed trains to be able to operate between the tracks. Moving up to the West Baltimore area, Midtown Edmondson neighborhood space. This is where the majority of our work is. Over a stretch of about 1.5 to 2 miles. This spans from Warwick Avenue up to where Kiewit Shade will begin the tunneling work just north of Lafayette Avenue. This work consists of, as Odessa had talked about, the key points are the new West Baltimore MARC station that Amtrak and design team are working in conjunction with MTA to finalize. 5 new bridges, as Odessa talked about earlier. A good bit of roadway and utility work that supports both our work as well as making the entry to the tunnels clear for the Kiewit Shade team. And then what we call the U structure, which is about a 3/4 mile long concrete box that extends from Franklin Street up to the portals of the tunnels north of Lafayette. This structure allows the trains to get from grade down to the depth below ground level to be able to enter the tracks and retains the ground behind them. Most of our early work that we'll talk about here in the next moment is really clearing the space for the Kiewit Shade team to begin their work with excavating and mining for the tunnels. As far as the bridge work, that spans over the course of several years. The traffic control plans that have been put together by the design joint venture team are set up so that we're not closing down multiple roadways at the same time. So Mulberry Street basically gets built and the adjoining bridge gets built first in its entirety. And then after that's done, we'll move on to the Franklin Street Bridge. After that's done, we'll move on to the Edmondson Street Bridge. Warwick and Lafayette at the 2 ends basically happen in a stage process. And that's done so that we're not creating a major bottleneck in the middle of the construction area. This is just another way of looking at how the projects are laid out between Warwick, the area at the West Baltimore MARC station between Mulberry and Franklin Street, the Edmondson Avenue Bridge, which is just north, and then the utility relocations that are largely up around the Lafayette Avenue area. One thing I do want to touch on here is the track off to the left. That is where diesel trains in the future will then be able to come off the tracks and they go through the existing bridge to allow the new tunnels to service electrified trains. Moving on, we have a small amount of work on the North Avenue area. One location at the intermediate vent facility at Utah and North Avenue. And then another location on McNesson Street. This is up near I-83 and the MTA service yard. Our scope of work at these 2 facilities following the demolition contractors, primarily our job is to make the space ready for the Kiewit Shade team to do those ventilation facilities or the excavation for the ventilation structures. So we're primarily doing roadway, sidewalk, and utility work in order to make those excavations clear. Moving on, I'll give a quick overview of our work coming up here over the next several months, and extending out at least for the first few years. A couple of key milestones to date. So as Luigi and Odessa talked about, we were awarded the Clark Stacey Whitbeck team this past fall in October. That allowed us to begin with some of that involvement that Odessa and Luigi talked about. We held a industry outreach event in early January at Coppin State to engage local contractors, talk about the job, a very similar discussion as this, to brief the industry on the work that was coming up and opportunities to get involved in upcoming bids. Our first bid package went out to the industry in early December, and we'll be turning in those bids here shortly. That work is primarily to set up what we'll talk about here with the upcoming utility work, make ready for the Kiewit Shea team, as well as the early instrumentation and monitoring and existing condition surveys that Phil talked about. So in terms of what to expect here over the next couple of months, Phil talked about the pre-construction surveys that we're looking to begin here later this spring or in the spring. Mobilization as well as installing the instrumentation that we discussed. And then as far as actual shovels in the ground and beginning construction work with setting up site fences, beginning the installation, relocation of the utilities, that work is scheduled to begin this summer in the third quarter of the year. And will last about 18 to 22 months. Roadway work on the Mulberry Street underpass, where the roadway gets regraded and the new bridge gets built adjacent to the existing one. That work will begin in the fourth quarter of this year. Here's just a look ahead at the upcoming areas of work that I had talked about. Several of the spaces beginning at the intermediate vent facility. The southern approach utilities, this is the work up around Lafayette Bridge, and the South Coral utilities, which is basically just south of Lafayette. I'm sorry, I had those two reversed, but they basically both begin the same. And then, as I mentioned, the Mulberry Street Bridge work that begins at the latter part of this year. Both of those packages go out until 2026. The north ventilation facility make ready work from our end begins as the intermediate vent facility work wraps up. So I'll hand this to
All right, so obviously one of the things we expect many of you that are here tonight is an opportunity. How can you do business? How can you be part of our team? So Clark Construction, Stacy Whitback, we're committed to assembling a diverse team of partners able to deliver the significant enhancements to the Northeast Corridor of the Amtrak Freight on the Southern Approach. So there's some project contact information here. There was also flyers on the table when you came in. But there's estimating at cswfddjv.com. You can drop an email there with your information and someone will follow back up with you. Of course, you can use the general project information, and Odessa and her team will make sure any of the inquiries that come through the FTT tunnel website are there, or you can scan the QR code that's here, and that it will link you to what we call a subcontractor qualification application. We need to get through some basic screening information to understand the type of work that you have an ACE code for, and other critical business information to make sure that you have the skill sets we're going to need to partner. There's also another website there that you can join. So hopefully folks have had enough time to do this, and I believe I'm handing off to Kelly from the Kiewit Shea team.
I'm so proud that you trust me with the clicker. All right. Maybe you should trust me with the clicker. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out to join us this evening to learn more about this project. I am Kelly, and I'm pleased to introduce you to my colleagues that are the Kiewit Shea Tunnel Constructors team. So again, my name is Kelly. Slide here. And I oversee economic inclusion, and on this job in particular, we'll be managing community outreach. I am joined by our project manager, Mark Peterman, who you'll hear from in just a moment. Jerome Worthy, who is overseeing community outreach, and Prince Davis, who is also part of our community outreach team. Couple of quick things about the Kiewit Shea team. So our joint venture is comprised of Kiewit, which is the company that I work for, joined with Shea, and I'm starting to get a little bit closer, with JF Shea Construction. Our two companies have been in partnership for decades, and our work in this community dates back, I think 23 years, no, 34, through our construction of the historic Phoenix Shot Tunnel project in Baltimore. So we've been around for a while. Some of our commitments that we'd like to convey to you, just so that you have a sense of who we are and how we undertake business, are a few pillars of the way we wish to proceed with the work that we're doing in this community.
Can you speak
So
up
our
some?
work is based. Can you hear me okay? I'm sorry, am I blowing y'all out now? Okay. So we are committed to equity and ensuring that we maximize opportunities for local, small, and diverse businesses in the community. We're committed to partnership and ensuring access to information, opportunities, and resources, leveraging community stakeholders and partnerships. We're also committed to investment in the community. One of our core values is stewardship, and we interact with our communities, ensuring maximum return on Amtrak's investment to build business and workforce capacity, and of course, accountability. We operate with transparency and will maintain accountability to this community and its stakeholders. So with that said, I will turn it over to Mark, who will talk a little bit about our work in the community and a little bit more about the project.
Thank you, Kelly. Again, I'm Mark Peterman, the project manager for the Kiewit Tunnel Constructors Joint Venture. Our primary scope is going to be building the tunnel, the new Frederick Douglass. We've currently got other contracts here in Howard County, just west of here in Ellicott City. We're also starting to excavate storm sewer tunnel, 18-foot diameter, roughly a mile long, and really going to help prevent the future flooding of the city. As you guys know, the city floods out quite often and recently, and it's going to be a big advantage to take all that storm water into the tunnel and directly into the Patapsco River. As Kelly mentioned, and also Phil, the joint venture started at the Phoenix Shot Tower Tunnel, I guess southeast of here a little bit, and really that history is took the joint venture partners all over North America, primarily focusing on tunnels and transit throughout the whole of North America. Some of the other projects listed here just recently finished up with the Yellow Line rehabilitation for the Wagmata in the DC area, and other jobs shown up there. The scope of work really is just the tunnel for this part. Honestly, Clerk and Stacey Whitbeck have the challenging part of helping us develop the areas to get to the tunnel. And then we'll primarily take the two tunnels from the south ventilation facility to the north. Not only is it two prime general contractors, but we have brought a team of pretty experienced tunneling contractors, very specific scopes. But look forward to partnering with a lot of the workforce and local contractors here as we develop our team and start construction also. So let's dive into some of the details. The schedule for the tunnel in particular is really just starting right now. The planning for this part and the collaborative relationship with Amtrak and the designers for the next year here before we can start the excavation for the launching shafts on the south side of the job in the middle part of 2025. Both of the TBMs will be delivered for roughly 2 years from now, and we'll be launching from just north of Lafayette Bridge there in the middle of 2026, with final completion of all that excavation in 2029. Just a little graphic of how the TBM works here. You can see the brown layer on the top, which is the soil and the overburden on top of the native rock. A lot of this tunnel's going to be constructed in solid rock that's the bedrock of all of this. In addition to that, you can see the light gray area of grout along the top of the tunnel boring machine. As we advance the machine, we probe smaller holes out in front of the head and do additional pre-excavation grouting to solidify and cut off the water that could be traveling through that rock, but also fill the backfill so that's a nice solid and structural alignment behind the machine as the tunnel advances. The typical day would be anywhere from 25 to 35 foot per day for this advance. And this machine alone is about 400 foot long and weighs just the cutting part of it over 400 tons. Yeah, wow. As we're actually mining with the machine cuts about a 30-foot diameter and builds a 26-foot internal diameter precast segment as it advances every 6 foot. As we're advancing that 6-foot chunk, the machine actually only runs about 50 millimeters per minute, so roughly 2 inches every minute as it advances the 6 foot. We build the 6-foot precast and do it again. The approximate tunnel starts off at about 60 foot of depth and will reach down to roughly 100 foot below grade, 180 foot below grade. And with that depth in the solid rock, it really has pretty minimal impact to the alignment upstairs. Most days, no one will even know we're there. With that, we'll talk a little bit about the impact on homeowners.
How you guys doing? Jarrell Worthy here. We'll go through a little bit of what the homeowners can expect. So within the next couple of years, property owners within the area of tunnel construction will be contacted. I know Odessa talked about this earlier, the pre-construction surveys. So we'll be going door to door as well. We'll get those initial assessments on the existing conditions. And we appreciate the feedback as it is a collaborative process. Proactive communication of upcoming work will be provided so that everybody understands potential or made aware of potential impacts to their day-to-day. And controlled blasting, excavating rock will occur near the construction sites. Very, very minimum. A typical blast will last approximately 5 seconds or no more than 5 times per week. Informational meetings on this will take place and they'll be open to the public. It will describe the rest. Will describe the use of controlled blasting and detail how construction professionals will safely execute blasting operations. And during the construction and after project completion, follow-up surveys will be conducted as well. So to connect with our Kiewit Shea team, you will go through just step 1 here by completing the questionnaire. There's a QR code here. We are very adamant about connecting with the community and understanding, I would say, small, minority, and diverse businesses. So we're here to understand how we can be more impactful and collaborate more as well. And so after doing that, you'll sign up for our Building Connected. That's how you can get in touch with our team. And after doing so, we'll be reaching out to you with a response via email on Building Connected as well. So, oh yes, right.
All right. Okay, so thank you very much. So we're going to move into the Q&A section of our time. Couple of different things. There were people who submitted questions through the Slido code. I don't remember if I have it. So if you did not have a question that you submitted and you still want to while you're waiting as we're going through, you can scan this code and you may still submit questions. I'm going to start to go through some of the questions that are already in there, and then We will filter to people who may want to ask questions that didn't submit at the microphones, and so I'll have 2 folks on my team be able to help navigate that. And Jordan, you take this one. Thank you. All right. So first, I just want to say thank you to both contractor teams for being present here and able to answer some of the questions that we have. So I think I need Mark and Soraya close to the front, and if you stay right here for me, that'd be great. Oh yeah, Mark, both Marks. Mark, Soraya, Phil. Okay. Yep. Come on, Phil. All right, so I'm gonna go through the questions as I see them. And some of them, I'll have to dictate who's gonna be the right person to answer. So you guys have a microphone there? All right, so the very first question is, will there be a need to enact eminent domain for this project? And if so, what are the implications for residents in terms of timeline and payout? I'm going to let Mark take that one.
Hello? I believe the answer to that question is yes. There is, our real estate folks are probably the best ones to actually answer that question and what the impact would be. But I believe there are a few properties where eminent domain will be required. As far as any of the ones that I've heard about so far, I'm aware of, it's mostly because it's either abandoned properties or properties where we haven't been able to get in touch with any of the owners. We can get our real estate folks to follow up and provide any sort of what the impacts would be. But like I said, the short answer is yes, there are going to be some, and how, if anybody, would be impacted is probably something that real estate needs to actually respond to.
All right, excellent. I'm going to let you hold on to it for one more question. Why is the DBE goal 10% when the construction is being performed in a minority community?
So I think the DBE goals on the 2 different contracts are actually slightly different. I don't think it's 10%. I think it's 15 and 17 or something along those lines. Yeah, so they're slightly different, and so our procurement group and actually our supplier diversity group actually did a quick assessment in terms of what the local community could achieve. And so those are the targets that were provided in the proposal. I think both teams, actually, from what we've heard so far, are committed to actually trying to exceed those goals, but we needed to have realistic targets based on what the assessment was for what the sort of the local community could provide.
I'm going to hold on to you one more time, and then I think that Mark and Phil will be able to follow up on the answer to this next question. How is this going to bring jobs to the community? And then the follow-up question to that, which is slightly disconnected. What happens if the tunnel caves during construction or you hit a water main?
I guess I'm not sure how you connected those 2 questions, but we'll talk about the first one first. I was just talking to Keith earlier, and some of the work that they're doing right now in terms of the demo and salvage. They're actually local residents that are previously were not employed, and we're given the opportunity to go through and work with them. And so just, it's sort of like instant impact, and on a small scale, but instant impact, we can see that happening right now. As far as overall, so there is a project labor agreement, and the targets so the project labor agreement is with the local unions. And the targets for specific
zip codes surrounding the project, right? And so the way the targets were set up is the zip codes that are closest to and most impacted by the project, and then it sort of steps out towards to include all of Baltimore and Baltimore County. Really, the targets are 50% of the 50% of the hours associated with the apprentices would be hired from within those target zip codes, and 20% of the journeyman hours would be from folks within those targeted zip codes. All right, so there is a huge push to not just hire, or not to just bring jobs, but to have those jobs go to the local folks and the folks who are most impacted by this project.
And then I'm going to let Mark answer the tunnel cave question. Other Mark.
Yeah. So the question was, what happens if the tunnel caves in? I guess I will answer the question, but let me step back before that. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of steps that we take on pre-engineered solutions to make sure that never happens. And that's really part of the collaborative engineering and work planning that we're doing currently with Amtrak and the designer to get the contractor's input for the next year and developing all the means and methods to make sure that that never happens. Obviously, that's a horrible day if that does happen. So everything we can do to not make that happen is where we're at first off. And secondarily, we will have contingency plans to be able to close off ground as it does run into the machine. It is most likely a higher risk at the very, very shallow elevations. And luckily, the start of this excavation is not under residential houses for approximately 1,300 foot, and that's where most of the risk is. So we're surely taking primary interventions to consolidate the ground, do the right type of means and methods as we excavate the machine to get into that good solid rock. We showed the picture of the dirt on top of the good solid rock. Once we get underneath the local residences, we're really in that weathered rock area, and we can do things like drilling out in front of us with very, very small holes to make sure we understand what the ground is in front of us, and then that consolidation and permeation grouting out in front of that to make sure that none of the water is coming into the seams and the fissures of the rock there, so that by the time the TBM advances to that area, we really have a good idea of what the ground is and can have a successful project mining the tunnel without that ever occurring.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to go to the microphone over to my left. You can ask one or two questions.
There was one other part of the question before the lady asked her question. So you asked about what if the water line broke. Like Mark revealed, is we have a lot of work we do ahead of time to make sure we understand exactly where the existing infrastructure is. We use what are called soft dig, so it's vacuum or hand, no mechanical equipment, until we can physically put eyes on and see and understand what the existing utility is, and then plan our work, or if needed, if it's not where it was anticipated, we will work with the design team to modify and anytime we are working on critical infrastructure, we are in direct communication with that owner, whether it is the Baltimore City DPW, our telecommunication partners of BG&E, so that we have an incident chain of command. So there's a call tree with 24-hour response capabilities. So there's a lot of measures, again, like Mark, we do a lot of preemptive planning to avoid incident, but we also have a plan B reaction plan in the unlikely event something happens.
Okay, my questions and statements have to do with what already has happened.
Thank God.
And as the opening statement for the gentleman, about his name is talking about things, one of the things he was talking about was the solving issues with the constructiveness of the train. But my question is, but you guys haven't solved the issue with our community. And again, we're in this It's at our expense. For instance, on North Avenue in Linden, where the ventilation was supposed to be set up across the street from the school, somebody forgot to tell us in the community that there was going to be a demolition happening there, and the children were going to be in school at the time.
That's right.
Oh, wow, you guys forgot about that. I hear a lot of talk about the train, the big tunnel of the train, but again, the community, this is effective. We can walk over to the Amtrak or where we can. So, again, the lack of respect for the people in 21217 and surrounding area. A lot of y'all's areas you're putting this train through, there's a lot of abandoned buildings already existing. But this main community that you're going to start with at first, all of us occupy this space, and our children.
That's right.
I guess at the very least, I'll just say I apologize if you were not notified. I know notifications went.
It's not enough.
Okay. There were notifications that went out for
There were
all
not.
of the demo.
No, there were not. I didn't get one.
There were notifications that went out prior to all the demolition activities.
You did not confirm the exact date. You
The
did not confirm
notifications,
the date.
notifications are required by even by the
You did
city
not
permits, and those
notify us of the
notifications were
date.
sent out accordingly.
And you altered the sign.
And you said you didn't need permits, do you?
Permits were required and notifications were sent out.
Not of the date.
Most people in West Baltimore don't even know that this is happening.
So in order for us to make sure that we can get through all the questions, I actually have a lot of questions that are or comments that are being raised. So in order to get through them, we're going to make sure that we do this as orderly as we can. Our goal is that everyone who submitted questions, that we can get to them. So if you can just bear with us a bit and let us get through and answer, that would be super duper helpful. Okay? All right, so I think the next question, were there two here, Reverend?
She came after and you had questions.
Right, oh, I'm sorry, I apologize, because we had a question here. Yep, you may go. Then I'm gonna read questions, because we have about three, and I'm gonna go through three, and then I'll come back over here, okay? Thank you.
Well, I have several questions. My first question is, how does this project contribute to community development? Not just infrastructure, but actual development of the communities that you all are going into in this road.
I'm going to answer half of it, and then I'll let Mark answer the other half. So in terms of contribute to community development, I think there are two different things. There is a commitment from not just Amtrak, but also the contractors to work in the community and have a community stewardship program, which we have been working on. That has looked like volunteering at various schools in this community. So Mary Ann Winterling, we've been there several times. We've been to...
What have your volunteer work? How has that? What has been done with the volunteer work?
Right. I'm only telling you a few places that we've been so far. So that has been going to those schools and kind of working in the schools, talking about railroad safety, talking about the importance of us having a connection with the community as much as possible. That's a community stewardship effort. Community development, this program is really designed to build a tunnel, right? And so there is the commitment to building railroad infrastructure, and that requirement looks like, how do we get that done effectively as a railroad? I don't know that we could say community development, so I don't know if, Mark, you had any other response to that side.
So your answer would be no. Your answer. I'm not talking about yours.
I'm letting him answer the rest, because I don't know the rest of them.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to address about the community investment program. I was going to address once again, there was a question about jobs and when the jobs are added to the community and brought to the community, and there is a community investment program, and we are working with the city as well in terms of you may count that as infrastructure, but if the city parks and rec and those things are maybe not traditional infrastructure, right? So not roadways and bridges, but parks, recreational facilities that enhance the community.
So what are you doing with the parks? Because as far as I've read since I stumbled across this, the only thing I've seen that you all are doing for recreations and parks is temporarily relocating the playground on Lafayette Pacing and moving into Landell and Bright Street for a year while you all do your construction work. So what specifically what is the plan?
There's, in terms of coordinating with the city, with recs and parks for what additional facilities or locations that they're interested in us providing, whether additional access or additional facilities, that's what's going on. The city and recs and park have to sort of weigh in on exactly which locations they're kind of looking for us to provide assistance with. And then, like I said, the additional jobs and the big push to have.
I have a follow-up question about what you all discussed.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
How are you keeping track of the percentage of people being hired within these communities?
So we're working on setting up a partnership with the Mayor's Office of Employment Development, so MOED, and MOED will be our partner in exactly what you're asking, in tracking that, right? So the overall investment program, we have targeted, like I said, targeted hiring, but we also have targeted training and setting up the apprenticeship program. And so what our partners will be tracking is that if there is funds spent from the project towards apprenticeship training, those funds are spent specifically on individuals within those zip codes, right? And not necessarily providing the same assistance and support to folks outside of the Baltimore, outside of the local zip codes or outside of Baltimore County.
Okay, so then would you say that these apprenticeship programs are how you all are allocating the funds that you say you have for community investment? So then how are those funds allocated, or how will they be allocated?
So the apprenticeship programs and the job development is only a small portion of the overall community investment program. We did have and it's available on the website, what the different targets are for the community investment program. I think for the apprenticeship and supporting and providing wraparound services, whether that's providing daycare services or transportation for local hires to the job sites. I think the overall target was 5 to 9 million out of the overall community investment program. And like I said, so MOED is going to be our partner in tracking that and making sure that those go to folks in the community.
Thank you.
But
So-
5 to 9 million,
Yeah, I'll
there's
get
still
to it.
42 million remaining.
Correct, so so I appreciate your questions. I do want to make sure that we continue to move, so we'll let you come back, no problem. To kind of try to complete your questions, the rest of the goal numbers were on the website, and what Mark was indicating is he doesn't remember what all of those goal numbers are off the top of his head,
That's
but
fine.
that
The
information
meeting
is available.
To provide us with the
No,
information.
correct,
So
understood.
we don't have the access, but that's why you all are here, and that's why we're asking.
Correct. So what we will do is we'll go double check what that number is so I can answer it before we leave for the rest of the day. One of the questions that came that I think I can easily answer, the presentation slides, not just for this evening, but for every meeting we've had so far, are available up on our website, fdtunnel.com. So if you want to see those slides, we'll always have the information from these meetings available. And then I think I was just looking to which ones I could quickly answer. Oh, there was another question about stops for the train. So to clarify for anyone who may be uncertain about where the train stops, the stop that is in West Baltimore is the West Baltimore Mark Station. And so that is the only stop in West Baltimore Mark and then Penn Station. So those are the two that are part of this program.
Amtrak doesn't stop in West Baltimore. It takes from West Baltimore.
Yeah, so Mark
West Baltimore
uses
Mark.
the West Baltimore Mark Station, so
Correct.
Amtrak does not stop at West Baltimore Mark Station, so Amtrak's only stop along this portion of the line, which is Baltimore Penn Station.
Okay, and so I am now going to pivot to Ms. Borland, have your questions, and then I think there's a question for you, Mark, that I want to, Mark Peterman, that I'll come back to after this question.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Barbara. I'm a homeowner on the alignment. For everyone in this room who is a homeowner on the alignment, the question I'm about to ask, I think, is probably something that you have been curious about in your slides. So from the beginning, Amtrak, you have, your team has asserted that the way in which you would like to acquire subsurface property rights from homeowners on the alignment is in fee simple. So you want to approach us, you want to purchase the subsurface property rights in fee simple, and then from there, you'll determine with a pre-construction survey what about our homes needs to be shored up or managed. As a homeowner, from the beginning, I have had the problem of being unable to agree to that proposition. I don't think we can come to a fair negotiation for anyone on this alignment about how to keep their homes safe unless the pre-construction survey comes before the agreement. Unless you come to our homes, you look at them, you determine how much vibration there is, how much noise there is, how you're going to monitor that throughout the process, and then we would agree to that in writing as part of that exchange of rights. And you have repeatedly said, Amtrak, that you're not going to do it that way. You want to buy our rights, and then you want to do what you're going to do after that. We just have to trust you. But we really need it in writing. These slides seem to indicate to me that your construction team will be performing pre-construction surveys in the next 45 days, but that property acquisitions will now be rolled out over the next 2 years. So have you changed your position on the order of operations in which you are attempting to come to an agreement with homeowners on this alignment? Sorry, I realize you as a collective now here.
No, I'm actually going to give that question. Are you saying you should answer it? Okay.
Yeah, your associate counsel is here, so maybe she can answer.
Yeah, I'm going to let Deborah answer that question, and I'm going to pivot to
I
you.
want to clarify the
Yes.
surveys.
Yes, please.
The pre-construction surveys that are anticipated to start in the next 45 days or so are only those associated with the early utility and roadway work that Ryan spoke to.
So those are Baltimore City property and utility issues.
Yes, ma'am. So it's that early enabling work, and that was not speaking to any of the properties under the tunnel alignment, and I'll let the ladies speak to those.
So Amtrak is still, as we've mentioned before, in the process of making offers for the acquisition of subsurface property rights, fee rights, to all the property owners. There are offers that have been going out. They've been going out in a handful. We're complying with the Uniform Relocation Act. Those we view as separate from the pre-construction surveys and the surveys that the contractor is indicating.
So you have not changed your position on
We have
this
not.
at all?
And we are in that process. That is your right as a homeowner to accept or not accept an offer.
I think that an offer can only be negotiated in good faith if we have an understanding of the property that we're discussing, if we have a mutual understanding.
But
So for every homeowner in the room, in a normal real estate transaction, that would look something like the inspection clause, right? Seller commits to buyer, warrants to buyer that they will allow inspection of the house, that these things that we say about it will be true. What we need as homeowners is something that's in reverse, right? Buyer warrants to seller that they will insure the house against X vibration levels, X sound, any of the possible ongoing damages that will come from constant operation of the tunnel. This is, it's the future, and you guys want this to be your capstone project.
It's an acquisition of subsurface property rights. We're not acquiring your property.
But what you are doing is creating a potential for severance damages.
And then you have a right to make a claim if there's damage, which is why the team
But
is
that's
going to
not-
do a
Who wants
pre-construction
to sue
survey
a
and a
railroad?
post-construction survey.
Come on, we're just people who live here. We value and appreciate infrastructure. Don't put us in the position to sue a railroad.
That's right.
Just do it the right way. The first time it's really easy. You just change the order that you're doing it. Will you please consider that?
She's absolutely right. That train is going to come right behind my house. You've already acquired 2 houses in that area. So I'm now going to be an in-house. And nobody, not a letter, not a note, not anybody has knocked on my door to say anything to me.
We know you can make her house livable. We know if you believe you can tunnel under our homes, you can give her new windows, you can make it soundproof, you can do everything you need to do to stabilize this community.
That's right.
Why not? What's stopping you? Truly.
Greed. Greed.
Shit, what's stopping us is unity.
So I appreciate that question. Thank you very much.
What's stopping us?
I think there are a couple of questions that are related to becoming an eligible contractor, both for Mark and Phil.
Don't worry about that. We need to come together and fight.
I feel like that is
Come to an end. Not worry about it.
you guys have spoken a number of times about contractors.
So can you do me a favor? Can you go to the microphone so that people can hear what you're saying?
I can tell you what she said. She said that that's a selling point, that's about contractors. And you've already talked about the contractors. I think is that what you were saying? That's what she was saying. And we have questions. I live at 2311 Utah Place in 21217, and I'm scared.
That's
My
right.
house is 120 years old. My mama never owned property. It is my legacy for my 17-year-old daughter. It's all I have.
That's right.
Right now, there is a hole beneath my marble staircase on the front outside, and I have no idea. I am scared to death of what's going to happen with the blasting and the tunneling. I can hear it going on a block away right now,
That's right.
and I am very concerned. Right where the demolition was, from my window, I can hear that. You guys need to do a sleepover in 21217.
Amen.
You need to do a sleepover.
Amen.
So you need to see the children as they walk to school every day. And there's going to be construction for how many years? It's going to be a number of years. And there are 2 elementary schools, or 1 elementary school that's got to walk, that's going to have to walk to Dorothy Heights because it's closing down on Utah. Those kids are going to have to walk through this construction.
That's right.
That's our future. Those kids are our future.
Amen.
And I am terrified of how they're going to be able to do that without pollution, construction trucks, whatever else that you all are going to do, because we don't know, because you didn't tell us.
That's right.
But I am really scared of my legacy for my daughter. I don't have anything else. That's it. And I don't have any information. And I don't want to sell any part of my house. None of it. The bottom, the top, the sides, I don't want to sell any of it to Amtrak.
Amen.
And I caught the MARC train, so I know it don't stop in 21217.
That's right.
Thank you. So here's what I am going to do. I am going to try to get the questions. These are the questions that people have submitted, so I'm going to try to get those answered. There are questions both on the property side as well as the contractor side. There were 2 questions that were asked. And I'm going to ask them of both, although it's written, the first one is written, how will Clark engage the community? But I'm going to ask both companies to answer that. What does that look like? And will you be giving back to the communities you are working in?
No.
And it's also how can we become an eligible contractor?
There's some shady stuff for the west side.
That's
Right.
right.
So from the standpoint of Clark, we're going to build on that 45-year legacy of partnering and performing work successfully in Baltimore where we engage. Many of our employees are citizens in the city as well, both our craft workers as well as our professionals. From the standpoint of that outreach, it will be like we did for the first scope of this early enabling work. We'll be holding outreach industry events that allow people to understand what opportunities are out in the current bidding package, as well as how do we participate in that selection process. And again, we noted there's a flyer on the table, there was a QR code, you'll be able to pick it up out of the presentation off the website after the meeting. So there's many ways to get engaged in our system so that you're registered as a subcontract board to bid and participate. Another key part of what we do is giving back in the community. You heard about, you talked to Odessa about some of the outreaches you've done. Our team during Martin Luther King and across all our projects in the country, we did a week of giving back, and our team went over and worked at a local nonprofit supporting residents returning to the workforce in Baltimore. And we did a variety of construction work to help them get their training facilities in better shape, again, in anticipation of some of these great opportunities that are coming in Baltimore City. Again, building from that database, we're committed to meeting, or as Mark noted, preferably exceeding the small business and DBE goals. Many of the firms that have proposed already on the first package of work are Baltimore-based companies. Some of them very long-standing, a century or more in the city, and some are much newer businesses. So we're going to continue to build on those relationships and look to maximize that. We'll be working with the unions. We know they have very targeted goals. We also have the ability, anyone that reaches out to us, to make sure they get a referral into the pipeline in the right place, especially those folks that live in the community and are walking up. Those are the target zip codes, so they're going to get priority in the union training programs to make sure that those good paying jobs through the union wages are staying in the community. So those are some of the tools that the Clark family, Clark Stacy team will be using as we continue to advance our portion of the project. I'm sure Mark has some similar.
Can you provide that information in the slide, that how you go do this, and we sign up for the community people that's interested in getting in this program and working on a project?
I'll go back some slides because both contractors had the QR codes.
No, that's
there.
to be
That's to become a pre-qualified contractor. I'm talking about for the community, individuals that's interested in becoming a part of the union program.
Okay, excellent. I'll get them to get that for you. Okay, no problem. Thank you. Go ahead, Mark.
See, that's the other problem. Why isn't that stuff already done? This is what I'm talking about. You already have this contract with QR codes, but the people in the community can't you don't already have the information for this man to come up and say, okay, I want to be a part of this, let me scan this. Where's the contact information for those of you who are partnering with the city so that we know what's being done?
Let us finish. No, listen to what I'm saying. She's got a valid point. All I'm asking is that she say it in the microphone so everyone can hear.
What she said was that it's not about the contractors, we're talking about the people, the regular people in the community that don't own companies, that want to have a part of the apprenticeship, and that should have already been in the information, because that's us. That's us. That's us.
Okay. Understood. So I'm gonna make the same statement just universally. My request is that you're at the microphone because I want to make sure everybody can hear you. That was all I was going to interrupt to say, was to make sure that everyone can hear the question so we can answer it. And then the second part is a fair question of, do you have the information available at this moment for where people can go to access an opportunity?
Just a couple of things. One, the contact information that is provided can use to ask any of those types of questions. However, as PK mentioned when he was up here, right, essentially because this is a union project, they and all the contractors, right, pretty much have to hire out of the union home, right? So you can get in contact directly with the local unions, right? And what we're doing with them and with MOED is trying to set up the apprenticeship program so that there will be a pipeline, right? What, you know, and Phil just mentioned it, and you saw in Mark's presentation that the bulk of their work is not starting within the next few months, right? There's a slow ramp up, right? So the work starts within the next few months, and by the time you get out to about 2 or so years from now is when we're really ramping up in terms of the resources that will be needed. And so what the unions are setting up in terms of the apprenticeship and the pipeline to have folks trained and ready to go is okay, we're gonna need, I don't know, I'm just throwing out a number right now, but we need 1,000 people in 2026. In order to get to that 1,000 people, what we're gonna figure out is how many people do we need to start putting through the apprenticeship program right now, so that by the time we get to 2026, we've got the right number of people for the right number of jobs, right? The unions themselves don't, at least I can only speak for this program, right? But they don't necessarily want to get 1,000 people trained up and then there's 1,000 people sitting on the bench because there's no work available, right? So for this program, it's got to be sort of matched up to when the needs are. But in terms of contacting folks, like I said, you can use the contact information on the website. We'll still answer your questions. We'll direct you to the right unions, and we'll probably connect you to the Building Trades Association. And what they will do is they will help guide you through which specific trades, right? So when, you're not gonna, unless you exactly know which field you want to be into or which trade it is, they'll help guide you through that process. Right? So, that information is available right now, and I don't, we can provide additional contact information, but if we go right through the FD Tunnel website, we'll get you the right contact information and get you to the right people.
Thank you, Mark. Gentleman here has been waiting. Thank you patiently.
Yeah, good luck.
Can't hear you.
Good luck on your ability, Clark and Cuba's ability to hire and maintain jobs in this community on a long-term basis. Good luck with that. I don't think it's going to happen. But my question is, Clark and Cuba, you guys use very kind words in terms of community engagements, get back, things of this nature. What type of programs do you have in place that will help on a permanent basis or long-term basis to invest in the community right here, to provide something for our babies in terms of recreation facilities, schools, educational facilities, healthcare facilities, things of that nature. Now, I know that you have programs in place where you can come out, you may donate a couple of dollars to a community garden or something of that nature. But I haven't heard the overall budget of this particular project. I'm assuming it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
Billions.
In the billions.
Billions.
In which a lot of that money will go through Clark and Cuba Construction Company. I'm sorry for pushing that there. So if you had $100 million or a couple $100 million contract, what percentage of that money are you willing or plan on investing in this community on a long-term basis? In other words, you can come back here 10 to 15 years from now and see the fruits of the money that you invest in there. Do you have any programs like that in place? Are you thinking about those programs?
0%.
And if so, who are the individuals who are hitting up these programs so people like me, who is a community-based guy, can contact and get our hands on some of that money?
Yeah, so for the program, the community investment program, we've got folks here who are more familiar and trying to stand up the program right now. And there's Deno. So certainly the contact information for, once again, if we go through the website, we can get you to Deno or people that can answer very pointed questions about it, right? One of the things we don't want to do is I don't want to say, I know you asked about different projects, right? I don't want to be the one that picks, oh yeah, I think we should build I forget what you said, a community garden right here. The way the community investment program is being set up is that there will be applications for someone like you, for local entities to actually apply and identify what the important needs or programs are that will benefit the community the most. Right?
$5 million over 10 years. $5 million a year for 10 years. It's nothing.
It's a $50 million investment, and that's the amount that Amtrak is committed to spending to stand up and continue advancing the community investment program.
But you spent a portion of it already.
$50 million on $1 billion contract. I don't know what that percentage is. It seems like it's a very small percentage of money. And it won't take long to go through $50 million in a 5 or 10 year period. But my question is more specific to where the money is going. And this money is going to do these contractors who had hundreds of $1 million contracts, okay?
Clark doing the cut and cover, he'll be doing the tunnel, okay? What percentage of their contracts are they dedicated towards investing on a long-term basis in this community?
0%.
Have they thought about it?
0%.
Then so, who are the individuals that I can contact to get involved in this program, so I can get some of the, so I can get some of that money in my hands or to my community, so we can use to move our projects.
It's not happening. It's not happening.
I think he's actually asking a slightly different question than what I think we're hearing, so I want to clarify to make sure I understand. You're specifically asking to, I'm sorry, I think I'm feeding that. I think I'm feeding that. You're actually asking if the contractors themselves, outside of the $50 million program, if they actually have any investments in the community that they are doing. Is that what you're asking?
They're willing to invest.
Or willing to?
They use these kinds of words about, they use words about community engagements and community this and that, and they talk about the possibility of apprenticeship programs where someone can get a job and things of that nature. But I'm talking about investing real dollars in this community.
Right, I think, right, he's asking a different question than the community investment program, which is why I wanted to clarify, because we are answering a different question. And then I'm just gonna give a time warning because we've got about 10 minutes left. So I wanted to make sure everybody is aware, but we do, one of the other reasons we collected questions in Slido was so that we would have all the questions that were asked and would be prepared to answer them in future meetings. So I just wanted to make sure I kind of paid attention to that. Go ahead, Phil.
Right, so speaking on behalf of the Clark Stacy Whitjack team, there's a number of tools we use to help foster that investment in those communities. One of the most important ones is what we call a strategic partnership program. This is a scholarship program that is fully funded by Clark Stacy Whitjack. It's an applicant basis for those existing small businesses or the new entrepreneur who's standing up a business to gain those essential business skills to be successful. Right, everything from their finance to bonding, blueprint reading, estimating, etc. Right, so that's a 10-month executive training class for those small business partners to make sure they can operate and execute their contracts successfully. We we will be focusing and working to bring those strong paying jobs to those targeted zip codes with our union affiliates to make sure that that stable income is coming in so they can start to build generational wealth and invest in that community. So that's a downflow of the project in the targeted hiring. So building on that. The third leg of our stool will be obviously maximizing the small and disadvantaged business participation within our contract scopes. Now, not 100% of those businesses are going to be based in Baltimore. They can have this certification from the Maryland DOT, they can be from the outlying counties. But one of the things we have the ability to do is with Amtrak is through a best value assessment prioritize some of this targeted contracting award to make sure we're meeting the larger programmatic initiatives. So there's a lot of tools there. We'll be using all of them, and each one is going to have a different play depending on which aspect of the work we're procuring at any given time. And our contracting outreach is going to last over a period of a couple of years or more, just securing the contract awards as the design is advanced. So it's an ongoing process, and Mark, I'm certain you or Kelvin can speak to some of the strong programs. I know we're partnered together, I know you do similar business.
Thank you, Phil. Honestly, I don't think I'd add anything else besides the three-legged stool there, but for the fact that it really is a collaborative effort amongst all the organizations. It's not just Amtrak, it's not just contractors, but it is the collaborative team and the relationships together without all of us. So nothing else to add besides those three steps there.
All right, I'm going to I'm sorry, is that one on? Yep.
I think I may turn it off.
He's been waiting for a very long time.
Real quick, okay, and I know it's probably your turn. What I didn't hear the whole time is all of this collaborative and this, what was required, the percentage required in this proposal? We don't hear percentages. What was the percentage required of the unions to make sure that minorities who live in this community will get some jobs? Because
50% of the apprenticeship hours will be within the zip codes of West Baltimore.
is that in the proposal? Is there a percentage in the proposal that's required?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, people here need to hear what's required, not what is this, what we're looking into a thing. And the second part of my question is, the MARC train. I take the MARC train to DC. In order to, you guys, well, not you guys, but I guess you guys, and the state didn't raise the platform. So it wasn't ADA compliant, okay? And we have a short platform. What is going to be done while you're working on a MARC station? Where will we be getting it? Will we not be getting it in West Baltimore? And why is the Amtrak not stopping there? And why don't we have a station?
That's right.
In answer to your question on the new West Baltimore MARC station, when it's completed, there'll be a full standard 800-foot MARC platform southbound and northbound that will be 100% ADA accessible. We have to go through a lot of steps before we get there, but you'll have elevators, monumental stairs, and a full ADA accessible pathway to both southbound and northbound at the conclusion of the work. Yeah, the wheelchair, that or someone with a stroller or heavy luggage, someone who can't manage the stairs well, it's still going to be very elevated, but there's going to be multiple modes to be able to get from the street grade up onto the platform safely, and no matter what your mobility challenge may or may not be, or just handling a child in a stroller or a bunch of luggage as you're getting on the train down to the airport. I can't speak to Amtrak relative to servicing that station. Historically, they haven't, but Mark, I don't know if there's any longer-term plans or remain, Pennsylvania Station and BWI would be the two.
Every morning, there's a high-speed train that goes every morning right before the MARC train comes. So why can't Amtrak stop there? And that's a question that I think is fair to ask.
I don't have an answer on whether Amtrak has long-term plans to stop at the West Baltimore MARC station. I just know under the current configuration, Amtrak does not stop there. I am with Amtrak. Like I said, I'm not aware of any plans right now that Amtrak has to start stopping or servicing the West Baltimore MARC station.
So I just want to respond to the question why Amtrak is not going to stop at West Baltimore. The goal is having an accessible new station in West Baltimore, and the goal is the ability for passengers reaching, I think, Washington, D.C. in less than 30 minutes. And you don't need an Amtrak train, you need a MARC train that is going to be available. The Amtrak is called intercity service, connecting cities. Commuter rail line MARC is the train that is going to be a frequent, accessible, more important, and reliable system that today, and I have MTA here, it's reliable, it's frequent, but it will be in the future accessible. More trains, more opportunity to access job, healthcare, education in DC particularly. So I love when you ask why Amtrak you don't stop at West Baltimore, but the reality is you will have a train to reach DC if you want to go to DC. If you prefer going to Boston, for example, you need to maybe use the MARC train from West Baltimore to Penn Station, and then there will be a high-speed train. Again, new trains, new services. It's just a matter of time to build this infrastructure because we didn't invest for hundreds of years, and now finally we have this opportunity. So I just want to say, maybe your question was the easiest for us because we feel very strong in addressing your question about the station. I mean, about why Amtrak is not going to stop. So I hope I answer your question.
Thank you. And then I have a question from this gentleman over here. I apologize.
My question to you is,
Speak into the
do
mic.
you know which was the demolition company? Check the mic.
Yep, that's it.
My question is for who was the demolition team that did demolition
at North Avenue.
The question was who did the demolition at North Avenue? Delaware Cornerstone Building.
So Dessa, don't you think you should have known that answer, because in your presentation you said that your demolition team keep you abreast of what's going on, and apparently you don't know. Do you have any information of what transpired during the days of demolition?
Yes, but I'm not sure what the question is. So there are two different demolition contractors.
Which was the one that did it at North Avenue?
And I confirmed it with the construction team to make sure I had the right one, so I would not give inaccurate information, which is Delaware Cornerstone Builders.
But once again, this is information that you should have had as part of the Amtrak team, be aware of what's going on to our neighborhood. And coming back to, I have another question, but Mr. Rosa, you did it. Why did you just go?
You know that.
Okay, all right, Mr. Rosa, I'm gonna keep it up, Mr. Rosa. Your answer to the lady is absolutely not correct to tell her that y'all want to do this and y'all want to bypass West Baltimore because she lives in this community and that train station is close to her. Okay? We in this area should have the ability to tell Amtrak, since this is an Amtrak project, Amtrak should have the decency to at least make one stop in our community. Okay? I didn't take Amtrak. Okay? At least when I take Amtrak was from New York to here. And I understand using
Mark.
trying to make a train that works.
Mark.
Penn Station?
No, in New York is
West Baltimore,
Union Station.
New York.
New York train. We have a train that goes from
Yes, sir.
upstate straight down to 42nd Street, and they do make several stops.
That is the Metro North
Metro
Railroad.
North,
But
right.
that is.
I used Metro North for years, and there were several stops in our community that we could get on to go up north. You were just telling that lady that she needs to take the train from West Baltimore to go to Penn State to catch a quicker train. That's not here. You also take the example that Metro North has, which has several stops in our community that allow us to get on that train. Even if you want to live in the city and we have better transportation system, you can take Metro North and get to 42nd Street faster if you choose. If you don't want to do something. So I think that's something that your answer should have been, we shall consider. You don't have the power to make the change, but you do have the power to contact Amtrak and say, put this in your plan. Okay? That should have been the proper answer. Not telling us in this community, oh, that's not going to happen. Take the train in up this direction so you can take the express in the next direction. So you're telling her, please get up early to catch that early train to go Penn State to go back to DC. Okay? I will leave my rest of the question, and the company was, what again?
Delaware Cornerstone.
They did a horrible job, by the way.
So first of all,
Horrible.
I do my best to answer, and I want to say I joined Amtrak 8 months ago, and it seems to me we do our best, but we need to improve the way we communicate with you, because I see that we say something and you understand something different, but it's our fault. So I wanna, no, let me, if you don't mind. So Metro North, I used to commute using Metro North, but it depends where you are going. Because if you want to go to Boston and you live in, you need to go back to 42nd Street and then get the Acela. I was not being disregarding about the lady's question, but this is the nature of this system, and I think we are lucky when we have an accessible station in West Baltimore to go DC, or if you want to go to Boston, you need to switch. You cannot have Amtrak stopping at every station. It's the nature of the intercity system. That's why you have commuter railroad using the same tracks, the same Amtrak Northeast corridor, and this is all around the world. I I know I shouldn't say I worked on other areas, but that's my life. The high-speed railroad in Italy changed really the lifestyle and brought a lot of opportunities, but still it depends on where you live. If you live, as I lived many years, 50 miles south of Rome, I had to commute to Rome and then enjoy the high-speed railroad. You cannot have the high-speed railroad like the Amtrak, the Italian stopping in my small town, because it's not really an effective, efficient way to use the system. But again, we are lucky to have multiple options. So again, that is my best question, and you may not like the answer, but this is the best answer I can tell you. And the last thing, when Odessa doesn't remember something, this is a complex project, and we have our team, and we need to help each other. So I just want to say we are very prepared, but we also have different tasks and roles. So that's why we're here all together.
Yeah.
I have two, so I have
Thank you,
you.
Ron.
I have you here, ma'am, and the gentleman here are the last two questions we have.
Why do you always cut me off? I've been standing here. I'm going to ask a question.
I'm gonna let the woman at the microphone have
No,
her
Jessica,
moment.
I've been here. You do this every single time.
Okay, my question is BGE, the company that BGE is the company that's responsible for the conduit system that's being run in West Baltimore, Pulaski Street? Okay, there's on Pulaski Street, at Pulaski and Evanston. There's a big hole in the ground right next to my house. And the sign says project by BGE conduit something. Does that have anything to do with Frederick Douglass County?
I don't believe so, but I can check on that. So I mean, there's a lot of work so BGE is doing a lot of work with the city to upgrade the conduit network through the entire city. And I'm not saying that some of those conduits will not be used by this project, but I don't know the specifics about that one.
My reason for asking is somebody that's behind my cornerstone of my house is resting on the edge of this opening that's in the ground. The door tag came out and said that they would start this project in November, which they did, and it would run for a couple of months. I don't know how many months, but apparently like going into like 6 months into the new year. Yeah, about a month it was supposed to be. And right now, this hole is still at the cornerstone of my house. I have had to adjust my door open, my latch of my door, because apparently something's not open. And I want to know who's going to come.
Sorry, so you said the intersection of Pulaski and Anderson? We will check on that. As of, off the top of my head, I don't think that's related to this project, but we can verify that. I don't, if BG&E is doing the work.
So who would I need to contact on this team that's up here to let me know what's going on?
I'll check on it. Like I said, I don't believe it's part of this project. I'll let Odessa know, and she can get a response back to you.
I'll capture that. This gentleman, and then I'll let Carson have the question. We do have to leave the building, so I'll follow.
My question is very short, if I can go back.
Hopefully, this is for two. I've been looking for information on homeowners, presumably right over the tunnel. I saw this question also answered asked in the app. First, is there a way we can get an accurate survey map of actually where the tunnel's going to be? That's not actually my question. I've been looking and I haven't been able to find it. But my real question is, there's been very loose information about how much vibration we're going to experience if we live right over the tunnel that I've been collecting. Let's say after the tunnel's done or during construction that our houses are, well, especially after the tunnel's done, that trains going by vibrate my house all the time, all day, every day. Is there any compensation or anything proposed for homeowners who are obviously going to experience home devaluation, especially if it's not directly over the tunnel, but 40 feet over and still experiencing the same vibration?
Yeah, I guess I would say, I'm not sure I heard all the question, but so, yeah, there is a difference between construction, vibration, and operational vibration.
I'm more concerned about vibrations from when it's done until the end of time that my house is going to.
Yeah, I think the sort of insurance programs we were talking about earlier were construction insurance programs. And there is insurance for operational concerns. The vibration studies will finalize if there's any mitigation required, right? If there's threshold values, and if the operational vibration is estimated to be above those threshold values, then we are required to implement mitigation measures.
And where do we find more information on that and perhaps accurate survey?
Yeah, so the survey, I think that's already available. So there's not I guess maybe if you're asking for a detailed survey as to what
I've just seen a big green dotted line going through my neighborhood, that's all I've seen.
Yeah, no, there's, the plan and profile map, there's a plan and profile drawings on the website, and, I mean, you can actually, it's pretty accurate to go through those plan and profiles, and if you have you can figure out which one is your property on there. Now, if your property is within that range, like we were talking about earlier, where we would, be trying to acquire subsurface rights, and you'll be contacted by the real estate department, and they would actually have a very sort of detailed survey just for your property.
Do you need to acquire subsurface rights if it's near but not directly under your property, under someone's property?
No, you do not. And we will only the property that is actually needed for the tunnel was
So
that.
you're 5 feet over, and that's 80 feet down from property, then that's, you're not going to be
It's not necessarily 5 feet over. There is a zone of influence that's identified, and once again, per federal regulations, we can only acquire property that are within that zone of influence.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. And then, ma'am, I know you have a question.
Thank you so much. Is it on? Okay, thank you, Odessa. For Clark Construction, it sounds really nice that you want to hire a diverse team. But I'm looking at your website, and every single person on your leadership team seems to be white. So I would love to know if that's true. For the Clark Construction team, is everyone on your leadership team white?
Yes.
Our officer group encompasses over 150 individuals across the United States, and many of them are people of color, black and brown.
On the leadership team?
The most senior executive leadership team at Clark are all white.
Okay, thank you. And then KSTC, are you a minority-owned company, or did you just bring the black people on your team like a dog and pony show?
That's a good question. It's a fair question to ask. She wants to know. Okay, forget about that part. Her question was to tell her.
Can you answer for the KSTC representative?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, we're not a minority-owned company.
Okay. So then the only black company is the one that's demolishing the historic black buildings in our community? That's a question for the gentleman in the middle, in the second row, in the blue shirt. Yes, you. Yeah. So it's only the black, you're the only black company and you're demolishing the buildings? You're demolishing the buildings? Yeah, okay.
I also work for the city of Baltimore.
Wonderful.
The ventilation facility is designed to exhaust byproducts and smokes into the tunnel. So if there's an emergency, the response you want from the community is to call 911 in the press department. That's a question for Amtrak. Is that what you want the community to do, to call 911 in the press department? I said if there is an emergency at the ventilation facilities that's exhausting smoke from that said emergency, you want the community to call 911 in the public relations office?
I mean, in any emergency, you would call 911. I'm not
You
sure
don't
what's
have an
different.
emergency response plan for the community?
So overall, Amtrak puts emergency response plans together for all of our tunnels. However, in any emergency, you should call 911. I'm not sure what your question is.
But you said to call the public relations office in the documentation, right? So
If there is an
that's the
emergency,
connection between
it doesn't matter if
Amtrak.
it's at Amtrak's
It
ventilation
does,
facility or
because it's
somewhere
Amtrak's
else.
tunnel.
You should be calling 911.
Okay, my last question is for the contractors. There was a CHAP, so a Baltimore City Department of Planning meeting hearing yesterday, and the commission was not happy with the ventilation designs. So I just want to make sure that the contractors are aware of that feedback.
Yes, the contractor will be aware because the hearing was yesterday, and I think you heard that the commission would send a letter, and we will share the letter with our contractors.
Okay.
So they will be aware of that advisory review.
Will you be taking that feedback and presenting a new design?
I think you heard that we were there to receive the advisory review, so we will receive the review and we will review the advisory review, and then we will take into consideration the inputs that the commission has given to us, yes.
Okay. And actually, I know this is a $6 billion project. Could you remind me of the Community Impact Fund amount for a project that's going to be bringing billions and trillions of dollars into your pockets?
This is a multi-billion-dollar federal investment, $6 billion, and this is a unique program because as far as I know, this is the only program that has a $50 million specifically for the community of West Baltimore. In addition to the 50 million, this investment will bring many opportunities and many long-term and short-term benefits that I cannot quantify today, but are coming to the community, to the city, to the state, and to the nation.
Are you going to report to the state how you're allocating those funds?
I'm sorry, would you
Are
mind
you
to
going
repeat?
to report to the state of Maryland how you are going to allocate the funds from the
If
community
we are
impact?
talking about the $50 million community investment, we will have a transparent process, and you will see all the details, where the money is going to be and how Amtrak is going to spend the money, and we are required to spend that money.
Where can we find that?
I'm sorry, say that
Where
again.
will you be able to find that?
There will be a specific website to see all the details. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Correct.
So, in response to some of the other questions you had, you mentioned a lot of community engagement and partnership with the city. Do you have names, numbers, emails, addresses of people in the city and government agencies that we can reach out to these residents who are directly affected in terms of what's going on with development? Like, how do we become part of those boards that determines how you rebuild the bridges, where you put the park afterwards, what the park looks like, how long this is going to affect the people that we need to, connect with in the schools. How can, and once we leave here, because I know we're already running over time, how do we contact you all and actually reach a person and not just a ringing phone number?
Sorry.
I can pass on the